And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are live once again. Hello, welcome to the Board Explorer 4 o'clock slot. And today, this will be the last of our book that we're reading currently. What is it? In Search of England by H.V. Morton. Yes, this will be the last bit of that. And I should take a break because I'm going to be away on Saturday. For 5 days. I'm not sure what the internet quality is going to be like. So I will start the next book when I come back. So tomorrow and Friday, there'll be no readings, if that's okay. It just gives me a bit of time off, and then I may do something in the week, but you'll have to. Well, I probably will want the afternoons to go and video and edit and various things because I'm going to be away. So I thought we could have a week off, if that's all right, if that's okay with everybody. No, not the last ever reading. No, not the last ever reading. No, oh no. Good afternoon to the lovely Julia, to Ed Loud, to Ben Reed, to Audrey Forbes Hamilton, to Turbo Stream, to Cynthia Pate and others who are arriving. Let's have a look here. Why is this stream? The stream is healthy. Oh, good. That's where we want to be. Right. So, how are we doing? 16:01. Or 4 o'clock, 1 minute past. I was joking, of course. You deserve the week off. Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to be in Wiltshire, and I have my maps. I think I haven't got them in here now. So I need to pore over the maps and see where I'm going to go. I've got a book on Wessex trails that the lovely Julia and I were going to do, some of them which in Hampshire, but I think some of them are in Wiltshire, so some of these long trails. So I'm hoping to get onto a couple of those as well. I'm just want to try and get as much as I can in the bag to give me a bit of stuff. So I don't want to pin myself down on a trip away for 4 o'clock, but I'm hoping to do some form of live at some point. But I will wait till I actually get in the house and on Saturday and work out what the hell I'm going to do. Julia says, how irritating. I was waiting here and ready, but YouTube wouldn't start the live. It closed and reopened. But anyway, hello. I'm sorry about that, Julia. I did say hello to you at the beginning of the thing, but I'm glad you're here. I haven't started yet, so I just thought, it's worth having this little preamble so that people have time to join. Right, so this is probably going to be, well, it is going to be the last because I'm going to make a determined effort to reach the end of this book. So let's crack away. You're going away near Amesbury because I know of a place you can look at. Amesbury. Just trying to pinpoint where that is. I'm in a little village called Calne, Calne, which is west of Marlborough. I lived in Melksham for a while in 1990s. Wiltshire is lovely. I think Corsham, is that one? Corsham, I think, or Corsham, or something like that. I've been there on it's near Stonehenge. Yeah, I'm not going to Stonehenge. I'm not going to Avebury. I particularly don't want to go to famous places like that. I want to go to somewhere quiet. I think I'm going to concentrate on walking on these trips. I think that's the aim. I really don't know. Depends on the weather and so on and so forth. Watch out, he's making determined effort today. This will be good. Right. It's called the Kiwi. Oh, okay. Corsham is by the Box Tunnel in Wiltshire. I don't know what the Box Tunnel is. Is that a railway tunnel? I will email a location. You can decide. This is quite fantastic. Well, any ideas from people are very, very welcome, by the way. Yeah, Corsham is close to Melksham. I filmed there. It's a beautiful oldie-woldy place, and I did film there for a corporate job. And I did take some extra footage. There's a little triangular green if I remember rightly, and some beautiful old houses. So there we go. Hello to Linda Kane. Hello to Cynthia Pate. And anybody I haven't sent. Steve G, hello to you too. And anybody else who's there who's not contributing, hello to you. Wonderful people. Right. Corsham Computer Centre is there too. All right, that's one place I probably want to avoid. AKA, it's the Royal Navy's submarine software place. Oh, is it? Brunel's Box Tunnel is about 2 miles long on the GWR mainline, Greater Western Railway. Oh, okay. Box Tunnel. Is it a work? Presumably it's a working tunnel. I can't go wandering down it then, I suppose. Or maybe it's is it a dismantled line? That would be interesting. Laycock Village is close to. They used to film Bronte films there. Oh, yes. Well, I'm sure the lovely Julia is going to write down a little list for me if people make suggestions. Is that all right, Julia? She's suddenly going, what? Oh, I've got to get a pen and a bit of paper. Linda, it's usually on my phone. Oh, yes, that's it. Right, anyway, let's crack on, because if we get to the end of the book, we can have a chat. If we don't get to the end of the book, that's that. I'm afraid the world collapses. So we don't want the world collapsing. We are on the last couple of bits here. So this starts at Warwick Castle. No, it's still the mainline railway between Bristol and London. Well, that's no good, is it? I can't go wandering through the tunnel if there's trains hurtling through. What are you trying to do? Kill me? You see it, Warwick Castle, you see it from the bridge, lying high on its cliff, bowered among trees, shining in the Avon. The two maculated how do you pronounce that? Machicolated towers to the right. Generally, the bridge is crowded with trippers. I think I should call people when they're out and about, these holiday makers and these whatever, what do we normally call them? Holiday makers and whatever. I'm going to call them trippers. So much better. And if I see women wandering around, I should call them maidens. I like the language that Morton has. Probably end up in clink as a result of that. But there's a fair maiden on that bridge. There's and I hope that I will see jolly gentlemen smoking pipes. Every male in this book has smoked a pipe so far, and had a Wiltshire accent or Somerset. Pen and paper at the ready. Well done, Julia. So yeah, Corsham, that's one. Milksome or whatever it was. Laycock Village. That was good. Amesbury, that was another one. Melksham, yeah, there we go. There's a few, and Kiwi, wherever that is. Right. Anyway, two machicolated. Did anyone tell me how that was pronounced? No, never mind. Generally, the bridge is crowded with trippers. Some always say that's one of the finest views in England, which is true. One of. I stood there alone. I suppose that Warwick Castle is, after Windsor, the most famous and the most beautiful in England. A guide met me at the Barbican, and we walked past vivid green lawns, such as you will see in no other country in the world, till we came to the grey bulk of the castle, with a blankness about the windows which seemed to say that the Earl was not at home. The great hall of Warwick Castle is, although extensively and carefully restored, one of the glories of England. In the old days, the Earls of Warwick used to ride in on horseback, scattering the rushes and dismounting, draw a dagger and help themselves to an ox or the sheep which was roasting before a great log fire. How many Americans, I wonder, stand in this hall every year with their faith in England justified. It is Californians' idea of an English nobleman's home. I bet that hasn't changed, really, to a degree. I bet, Californians still think we ride in horses and stab at an ox on a big, great log fire. Its influence, I think, can be traced to the films. We admire the armour, also the great cooking pot called Guy's Punch Bowl, an enormous cauldron that holds 120 gallons, made in the 14th century for Sir John Talbot of Swannington. There is a legend that when the Earl of Warwick comes of age, Guy's punch bowl is filled and emptied 3 times. That must also impress the Americans. "I show thousands over the castle every year," said the guide, "and give me the interested American tourist in preference to the dull kind of Englishman who seems to know nothing about the history of his own country. There's Oliver Cromwell's death mask." I said that to a visitor once, and she made no reply, so, thinking she was deaf, I said it a bit louder. "It's all right," she replied. "I heard you. But why did Oliver Cromwell wear a mask?" "Well, madam, there was COVID, you see, back in the 17th century, and when Oliver Cromwell was defeating everyone at the Roundheads and Cavaliers and trying to get King Charles I's head on a stick, he had to wear a mask because he couldn't go into Morrison's because all the supermarkets had a law saying you must wear a mask. So Cromwell, being the pock-marked face with boils and all, said, 'I will wear a mask, a death mask,' because Cromwell spoke like that, you know, madam." Sorry, I'm making that all up. You may not have guessed. Why did Oliver Cromwell wear a mask? Is there a fairer scene in Warwickshire than the view of the Avon from the drawing-room? The river runs far below between green banks, cascading over a weir. "2 things are hidden about Warwick Castle," said the guide. "The Avon makes our electric light, but you can see no sign of it, and hidden beneath the great hall is an organ." Those rooms are delicious. They are packed with treasures. Holbein, Rubens, Van Dyck, Lely are frame to frame on the walls. The lighting is mellow. Little gilt shields illuminate the canvases and reflect their richness. It was growing dark when I entered the Beauchamp chapel, which takes the breath away with its beauty. I can compare it only with Henry VII's chapel in Westminster Abbey and King's College, Cambridge. The great Richard Beauchamp lay with his bare head in a tilting helm and his hands raised above his breast. I remember the story of the disaster that overtook the Earl's body in the 17th century. The floor of the chapel fell in, and the body was found inside the tomb, marvellously preserved. The women of Warwick, it is said, seized the hair and worked it into rings. The light faded moment by moment. I went out into the streets of Warwick, those quiet, attractive streets that have not lost the look of other days, conscious that a man might spend a month here and not exhaust the memories that lie so thickly beside the green banks of the Avon. It is difficult to know in Kenilworth where Elizabeth ends and Walter Scott begins. I went there on one of those hot, sleepy midsummer afternoons when the heat throws a haze low over the meadow and stones are hot to the hand. This rambling chocolate-red ruin fills me with a greater sense of desolation than any other ruin I've seen in England. Tudor England, in which it reached its prime, is, as time goes by, only yesterday. The faces, the philosophy, the poetry, the deeds, even the love letters of the people who moved through that age are still as fresh in our memories as the faces and the thoughts of friends. While many a Saxon and a Norman building stands perfect in England with the mistakes that the builders' axes made, which are still clean in the stone, this Kenilworth flings its tattered walls to the skies, and its once grand stairway ends in thin air, and the green grass lies in great hummocks over the tilted yard. Is that true? What is it called? Kenilworth. That's a? I thought Kenilworth was a place, not a building. Is it a building, Kenilworth? And does the staircase, is he saying? Sorry, that's not a Hitler salute. Is he saying that the thing just goes up and then comes to an abrupt end? Anybody know? Anyone been to Kenilworth? Kenilworth Castle. Is it a castle? What is he saying it is? Kenilworth. This rambling chocolate red ruin. Tudor England. Kenilworth Castle. Oh, this must be it. Why will this... What's going on here? Come on. Kenilworth the town. No, I don't want the town. I want... Stoneleigh... Why can't I get pictures? What's happened to you, Google? What's happened to you? Kenilworth. Castle. Images. Oh, that's better. Oh, here we go. Ah, that's Kenilworth Castle, is it? So that's what it is it? Now we know. Now we know what we're looking at. It's quite good. It is quite good if we can look up what it is. Because he doesn't say it's a castle, he just says Kenilworth. Anyway, this ruin is one of the tragedies. It had only survived as another Tudor building. Had it only survived as other Tudor buildings contemporary with it have survived, Kenilworth Castle would be, there we are, he mentions it there, would be without a peer of its kind in the historic monuments of England. Near Leicester's Gatehouse, I met an elderly man in a black coat who was saying goodbye to a crowd of American trippers. He waved his stick in the air and stamped his feet on the ground, and instead of smiling at his venoms, they appeared to treat him with considerable deference. He was, I learned, the official guide, and I was soon to find that he is the best guide in England. He collected a new flock, and certain members of it, having no proof yet of his virtues, laughed behind his back as he waved his dramatic stick. He started off, and we trooped behind like sheep. He kept turning round to face us and to wave his stick at us, and then he would move on a few paces and wheel round suddenly again, as if to assault our ignorance, sometimes giving us in a phrase of essential importance of a turret or a tumbled wall. This old man has soaked himself in Kenilworth. I love that. He soaked himself in Kenilworth. He lives Kenilworth. He loves Kenilworth. He took us to a high place, waited with raised stick until the giddiest college girl had stopped giggling, and then, from the mouth of this extraordinary guide, there flowed a magnificent oration. He built up the tattered walls of Kenilworth for us. He took us through the Middle Ages, and he brought us through Tudor, Warwickshire, into the train of Queen Elizabeth. There was not a sound to be heard from his flock. The little old man in the black coat standing there on the hilltop with the great dip beyond, where the meadows lay flat to the sky, and near him a jagged red sandstone tower, seemed to our astonished eyes to be the spirit of the place. He was so dramatic. His expression changed as he described the various men of the time: Leicester, Burleigh, Shakespeare, Cecil. Itchy nose. He spoke of Queen Elizabeth, threw his head up stiffly until I swear I saw the ghost of a ruff around his neck, and then he led us into that pageant which Scott has not described better than he did. Turning to face the meadows below, he waved his magic stick and filled the fields with the water of the famous lake of Kenilworth. Another wave and barges sailed there. Another wave and he rebuilt the castle, filled its gaunt corridors with the sound of laughter and the thin, sweet sound of the virginals. It was a remarkable tour de force. He left us rather bewildered, rather like children when the story has been told. Then sweeping that dramatic stick of his round the landscape, he ordered us to admire it. He dropped his voice to a whisper and moved his hands in time to his well-balanced sentences. He spoke about the long pageant of history that is England, the evil and the good that have marched side by side down the centuries, ending with, "England! You now stand in the heart of England. Are you proud of her? Are you proud of your share in her? I know that I am." An emotional Boston woman on the edge of the crowd wiped tears from her eyes. I went thoughtfully over the bumpy grass, cursing Colonel Hawkesworth and his round-headed troopers who made Kenilworth a ruin, and at the gate I met the old man waving his magic wand to a new flock. I stopped him and complimented him on the dramatic genius of the address. "Ah," he said, peering at me. And then I saw that he was partially blind. "I'm glad you feel like that. I was an actor once. I am one of the original members of Sir Frank Benson's company, but," and here he pointed to his eyes, "my career ended before it began." He waved his stick and moved off over the ruins. Just looking at the... didn't Sir Walter Scott write a novel called Kenilworth? I think that's what they're talking about, isn't it? I think that's what he means. Past Warwick Castle, doing the dodgy canoe paddle on the Avon. The dodgy paddle in aid of guide dogs. Oh, the doggy, not dodgy. Beg your pardon. Yes, interesting. I think southern England is no less than heaven, isn't it? Says UK. I think southern England is no less than heaven, isn't it? Well, there's just England is amazing in lots of different places. The powers that be are desperately trying to ruin it, not least with HS2 and other things. But we still have some incredible and amazing landscape and some wonderful history. The trouble is, the history that we make today, I feel that in the future, 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, people will not look back at the infrastructure and the modern buildings that we put up today and be impressed. I often go on about our future selves, but not our future selves, but future versions of ourselves, I'm sure we'll look back at this century, at this generation, and think, well, what did you do that was of any use that will, apart from trying to dismantle our history and report it wrongly in social media. So, shouldn't you be outside on a day like this, as my mother would say, Damo said. I was outside, actually, earlier this morning. Thank you very much. Yes, I was. But kind of you to have my vitamin D in your mind. I met him in the churchyard. He was carrying a basket of eggs, and I could see that he was, although not wearing a clerical collar, a vicar. A man, I judged, about 60, red-faced, muscular, white-haired. "Dreadful, dreadful," he said, sadly, looking out over the tombstones, some cut with 18th century inscriptions, some leaning together, some propped up with posts, many covered with green lichen, or half obscured by the long grass that grew between grave and grave. I thought it rather strange that a man whose mission in life is to teach the joys of the world to come should express painful emotion at the sight of his own graveyard, and I ventured to tell him so. "Well, you see," he said, "my trouble is that the people of this parish lie buried 10 and 12 deep in this little plot of earth, and the worst of it is that they like it. If you look over the wall, you will observe a fine meadow. That is our new graveyard, and it has already been in use for us for 12 years, but no one will hear of being buried in it. I greatly fear that I must take legal measures to shut the old churchyard, an order of the council or something, and make them accept the new meadow. I hate to do it, I really do. A great blow to them, a terrible blow to them." "But what," I said, is their objection?" He looked at me and smiled. "It is perhaps difficult for you, a stranger, to understand. You see, we are, in this little hamlet, untouched by modern ideas, in spite of the wireless and the char-a-banc. We use words long since abandoned. Why, only today I heard a little girl use the word Broughton for brought. My parishioners believe firmly in a physical resurrection. They believe that a trumpet will herald at the end of the world, and that the bones in this churchyard will join together. So, you see, they like to be buried on top of their fathers and grandfathers, because they'll rise together as a family. It is to them more friendly. Clannish in life and clannish in death. It's a very old primitive idea. I know another county clergy who are in the same, as it were, box." We walked slowly through the churchyard towards the grey house that stood smothered in trees. "Do come in and drink a glass of cider. I make it myself. My own apples, my own brandy cask." It was cool in the dark hall, and we went into the long room. Beyond the window was one of the loveliest gardens imaginable, a tangle of magnificence. Roses falling in white cascades from the old walls, pink roses flinging their rich sprays over arbours, and the air was heavy with the scent of flowers and loud with the sound of bees. There was a movement on the lawn. Was that a hare? "That wicked little beggar again," cried the vicar. "He comes and dances there every evening, confound him, but he makes a dreadful hash of my garden. Really, I really must think about finding him a good home, the little rascal." He cast a quick glance towards a gun rack. "How do you like the cider?" "It's rather sauterne." "Ah, you have a palate. Good. Yes, that's good. Indeed, it is excellent. The bouquet is delicious. Just smell. Hold the glass against the window. Look at that cloudy amber. My own apples, my own brandy cask. Have another glass?" "It is, I believe, stronger than sauterne." "Oh, yes, indeed it is." We walked through the garden talking about the modern difficulty of being happy. "Happiness," said the old man, "is a compound of simplicity, love, and philosophy, and, of course, faith. One must believe in something. I'm not preaching at you, am I? If so, tell me to stop. You see, a lack of faith is a modern spiritual disease, and people, it seems, are only just becoming aware of it. How happy am I, how glad I am to be alive and work here among children, flowers, and fruit. I love the children of this parish. I watch over them like a benevolent eagle, if that's permissible. To me, of course," he added whimsically, "all of them up to the age of 40 are children, for I have held them all in my arms when they were babies. How old do you think I am?" Well, I would have said 60. I'm nearly 80. Then I have my flowers, my fruits, and my fishing rods. What more can an old man want? It's very quiet here. We're far away from the pains of the cities and complexities. Life is reduced here to the simple common denominator. The men are on the land, and now and then a girl goes away to service to marry a man in the town, and she returns with skirts up to the knees to astonish us all for a bit, thinking us old-fashioned and stodgy. But are we? Our foundation is so solid. We're rooted in something firmer than fashion. We believe things, too. I see to that. Our simple sins, such as they are sins all flesh is heir to, and like all human beings, we need kindnesses sometimes, more than advice or censure. Oh, I know that so well. How the green fly has got onto the roses, damn them. You must have seen great changes here, then, in your time? Oh, yes and no. It's easier to get about now. We go to London once in a blue moon. You must have seen us with our mouths open wide in Piccadilly. Unless there's... oh, yes, wait a minute, sorry. In Piccadilly... Oh, yes. And now, unless I net those cherries, there won't be one left. Look at those birds. He sounds like this one we met, this other vicar. He's got this... He's got this, what has he got? This absent-minded vicar character that he pulls out from time to time, doesn't he, old Morton? Because we had another one like that. He was going around the flowers earlier. Lovely character, but this does seem to be the same bloke in disguise. Just look at those birds. Over the meadows drifted the smell of hay. We could see in the field beyond, in a garden, a man and a woman, knee-deep on the stack. My churchwarden... I often rocked that great big hulking fellow to sleep with an old wooden cradle shaped like an ark. Here he is. We walked round, and beyond the garden lay against the field... What? We walked round, and beyond the garden field... And beyond the garden field lay against... Sorry, just can't quite get the measure of this. We walked round, and beyond the garden field lay against field... marching together to the hills. The church bell struck the hour, and as we came unexpectedly to the Norman porch... What do you mean, and as? No, there's no... The church bell... Come on, Vobes, you were doing so well. The church bell struck the hour as we came unexpectedly to the little Norman porch. A shaft of light fell through the western window across the stiff company of knights lying spurred in full mail, their hands at rest upon their breasts. The ladies, too, alabaster, pale ladies, whose hair was dressed in forgotten mode, whose ringed fingers were held together in prayer. "The Josselins," said the vicar, with his hands on a stone sword hilt. "They died fighting long ago. There's a man of the same name working on the farm near, but he spells it differently. I think he looks a bit like Sir Jervis, who went out on the Third Crusade." There were coloured coats of arms on the wall, and high up, hanging precariously by a nail, an ancient helmet with a badly dented visor. The sunlight slanted upward till it lay in a bar across the face of the nearest knight and lit the long, thin fingers of this lady. "Would you care to stay the night? We could have a talk," said the old man. "Tomorrow is our harvest festival, and you might like that too." I told him that nothing would give me greater joy, and I think that my sincerity pleased him. My room at the old vicarage was small and white. There was a coloured picture of the Duke of Wellington on the wall, dated 1812, put there in a moment of patriotism over 100 years ago, on the eve of the last great war but one. When I looked out of the window, I saw the hare dancing on the lawn. Beyond lay the stubble field, gold in the late sunshine, with a few rabbits lolloping on the edges. Over the window drooped a screen of tight red roses, full of the sound of wings, and swinging slightly with the weight of the bees. I'm so sorry about my reading today. We were doing so well, and suddenly now I'm all tongue-tied and reading the wrong words again. I do apologise. In a warm... Let's just have a look at what you're writing just for a second, just to give me a break for a second. We're so close to the end now, it's like I'm sort of messing it up. All vicars seem to be cast in the same mould, says Ben Reeve. Yes, that's true. Cynthia Pate says, the vicar is so wise about happiness, simplicity, love and faith, and yet we seem to complicate our lives, don't we, unnecessarily. I think as you get older and wisdom attacks you, you suddenly start to realise, actually, I've been chasing my tail for so long, it's not really my tail I want. And suddenly it is just a bit of quiet and a little piece of England and a little bit of something natural rather than all these artificial things that we seem hell-bent on creating. Duke of Wellington, now there's a recommendation, says Morton Lewis. But vicars now are happy, clappy, PC one. Everybody's happy, clappy, PC, aren't they? That's the snag. How are we doing? Yes, 1634. Right, okay. In a warm twilight, we sat down to dinner with the windows open to the lawn. He at one end of the long oak table that had fed his family, and I at the other. Halfway through the meal, the aged housekeeper paused in her services to light 2 candles on the table. We saw outside the hush of evening deepen. There came into the sky that rich gold flush that precedes a harvest moon. A moth fluttered and charged the candle. In the sentence, you wouldn't get that now, would you? A moth charging the candle, because you don't get them anymore. In the silence, we could hear a dog barking miles off. It seemed that all the beauty of the world had been gathered up into the hand of God. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. His voice came slowly and softly beyond the candlelight, and we both looked again out into the fields. "I am rarely honoured with a visitor," he said, rising, "so we'll celebrate our meeting." Slowly, and with a reverence that was habitual to him, he carried from the sideboard a cradle in which lay a very ancient bottle. "This port," he explained, "is older than I am. I only have a few dozen bottles left. I keep it to cheer me in my solitude. An inheritance." He then removed the glasses from the table and replaced them by 2 elegant Georgian wine glasses. "A good wine," he said with a smile, "must not be insulted by a young glass." He held the wine to the candlelight, bowed slightly to one another, and drank. I thought that I had never seen a finer picture than this kind, experienced face in the glow of the 2 candles, the dark oak panelling behind his white head as he lifted the little glass of dark red wine to his lips. He talked of his people, of their fields, of the lord of the manor, poor now as a church mouse, but rooted to the land. He would like me to have met him, but he was away healing the sins of his ancestors at a spa. But an odd type. He loved his acres. He could not afford his birthright in society unless he sold land, and he could not sell his mother, could he? "When he dies," said the vicar, "I suppose they will sell to pay the death duties. And then—" He did not finish. "I suppose," he went on, I have lived for so long in old England that I cannot visualize a change. Nothing has changed here. Our last real sensation was in 1066, when the first Jocelyn grabbed the manor. But we soon got over that. We even followed him on a crusade or 2 and joined his descendants under the walls of Herfleur. Now and then we sent a son to the city to represent us in larger life. By the way, I wonder if it's really larger. For centuries we have prized the same prejudices. We still hate a man from Spennythorpe, and we have grown up as naturally as currant bushes out there, century after century. We were, you see, locked up here together with our fields and our imaginations, making our own songs and dances until the world outside sent us a gramophone and the latest murders every Sunday morning. Even that has not altered us much. The newspapers are only another kind of fairy story about the outside world. Our fields are the same as they always were, and we are the servants of our fields. We are happy because we have rarely known discontent. And, as I told you, we believe every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. We walked out into the garden, and the moon was up. A Sunday hush lay over field and wood, a silence broken only by the song of birds and the drone of insects. The church bell rang. The little church was full of corn sheaves. Apples, picked for their size and colour, washed and polished, stood in a line against the altar rails. Above the empty pew of the absent squire, barley noted its gold beard. The church smelt of ripe corn and fruit. Someone, I wonder if consciously or just by chance, had placed a posy of flowers in the stiff stone hands of Sir Jarvis. He lay there with his thin mailed toes to the vaulting, his sword at his side, and in his hands this offering from his own land to warm his heart in a Norman heaven. There was a discreet procession up the nave until the tiny church was full, the women in black, the men unhappy in collars, their great hands burnt red with the harvest sun. The children made eyes at the apples and whispered. The old vicar mounted the pulpit and talked to his people about the harvest and God's harvest, and as I knew he would, his wise eyes that knew all their sins and the sins of their fathers, and loved them perhaps because of those sins, moved over them as he spoke, and I noticed a subtle change in his manner. As he addressed them, he talked with a faint country accent, and I realised then, better than before, how well he knew his people. The little organ whispered down the nave. To thee, O Lord, our hearts we rise, in hymns of adoration. To thee bring sacrifice of praise, with shouts of exultation. Bright robes of gold the fields adorn, the bills with joy are ringing. The valleys stand so thick with corn, that even they are singing. We bear the burden of the day, and often toil seems dreary. But labour ends with sunset ray, and rest comes for the weary. May we, the angel reaping over, stand at the last accepted, Christ's golden sheaves for Christ's golden sheaves for evermore, the garners bright elected. The church emptied. The noon sun fell in bright spears of colour over the old Jocelyn's. Beyond the porch was a picture of harvest set in a Norman frame. The rich earth had borne its children, and over the fields was that same smile which a man sees only on the face of a woman when she looks down to the child at her breast. I went out into the churchyard where the green stones nodded together, and I took a handful of earth and felt it crumble and run through my fingers, thinking that as long as one English field lies against another, there is something left in the world for a man to love. Well, smiled the vicar as he walked towards me between the yew trees, that, I'm afraid, is all we have. You have England, I said. And that's it. There we go. In Search of England by H.V. Morton. What a lovely, lovely finish to a remarkable book. And that book, this particular book, was given to my father. Second place in Form B. Given to him at Christ's College, Finchley in 1947. I don't know whether my father actually read it, but it's a personal memento. He throws it away. So there we go. What a lovely book that was. We've read some fascinating books. So there we go. How about that? Let's just see what people are saying. Sorry, I watched the vid. Ben says, my local vicar, Sonny Vanipola, is the mother of English rugby players. Mako and Billy, plus her husband Feo, was the Tonga captain. Afraid that went over my head. So there we are. Unhappy in collars. Yes, that's true. I was distracted by Google Maps of Wiltshire and sending places to Richard, but was still listening. Fair enough. Singing corn. There we are. The end. I like the idea of fields and corn singing. Yes, and as long as we've got field against field, as he said, yeah, and hopefully we will have, although they are building on them rapidly, and our lovely version of England is disappearing 100 years ago. Well, just over 100 years. No, 100 years ago, isn't it? Just more or less. Anyway, there we go. How about that? We got that in, and that is the last of that. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a break probably for a week from the reading, because there's no point starting a new book tomorrow, because I shall be away on Saturday and away Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. So the next time I can start a reading would be on Thursday. It's Wednesday today, Thursday tomorrow. So it just seems sensible to take a week off. And but the next book, unless it turns out to be not so good, hard to follow that one, is The Wisdom of the Fields by H.J. Massingham. Now, I've got a couple of others by H.J. Massingham that have arrived, actually, and I'm going to have a little scan over that while I'm away, in case I just change my mind and do the other one. There's one, it's in the other room now. It's England, well, they're the same sort of thing anyway. It's all about farming and what have you. Say hello to my ancestors in Corston Church, says James Poulton. Okay, I will do my best. Thank you, Richard and Julia, for sharing this wonderful book, lovely readings and live chats. Yeah, we've done our best. Enjoy your days off. Thank you very much. I will actually be out filming, and I will do some live shows, so I would hate anyone to think that I was idling. But tomorrow there'll be no reading. There'll be no Vogue show. There will be a video in the day, and I need to catch up with some. But I'm out filming with Mark English tomorrow, hopefully a couple of videos, and then getting back to edit. So it will be another busy day. But there we go. Enjoy the break from readings and looking forward to my next choice. Marvellous. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Hope that the rest of the afternoon is jolly and that you do some good things. And thank you for being with me over this. If you've enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. That always helps with the algorithm. Thank you so much. Very kind. And we will look to see what happens in the future. Send them an email of possible places to do. Thank you very much. All right. Take care, and I will catch up with you later on. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.